Welcome to Mediumship Matters, the podcast dedicated to spiritual growth, connection, and the reality of working with spirit. This season is proudly sponsored by Spirit Social, the brand new online community for the spiritually curious. It's a space where you can connect, share experiences, and access exclusive content without the noise of mainstream social media. With live events, expert insights, and a supportive community, Spirit Social is the place to deepen your journey. Take part in the free 6-month trial by visiting spiritsocial.co or downloading the app from the App Store now. Hello and welcome to Mediumship Matters with me, Hannah Macintyre. How are you doing? Today, we are still working through listener questions, and I have got some questions from someone who's asked to remain anonymous. So let me read the email that they've sent. Hi, Hannah. Just sending through a question that's come up for me on my development journey. Firstly, thank you so much for taking on listener questions and providing advice and guidance as you do. I believe this podcast and your book has helped me immensely with my connection to the spirit world. I'm only new to mediumship and still very much developing, but have been lucky enough to make a couple of spirit links. As I was making my initial connection for a sitter, I think I was getting through a number of spirit links at once, which confused the information I was getting. Apologies if this is very basic knowledge, but I'd like to know. 1, how do you know you are working with multiple spirits? And 2, how can you work with only one spirit at a time to ensure you receive information that relates only to that specific spirit? Does it come down to the strength of the initial blend? Then I would like to know, how would you then move on to the next spirit that comes through? Also, I felt that as I was waiting for spirit to come through with one sitter, I didn't seem to get much information. But when I was prompted to ask the spirit specific questions, I could get information. Was I just working psychically in this instance? I'd love specific examples of how to determine psychic frequency from evidential frequency. Okay, where to begin with this one? I would love to tell you that when you're working with multiple spirits, you'll know every time. You won't. And that can sometimes be problematical. Sometimes I'm aware, sometimes I'm not. I think that is down to me. So the first thing I want to remind you all of, and don't roll your eyes, I know I've said it 100 times, but remember the intelligence of the spirit world. And also remember that the spirit world is here. They're not coming in from somewhere else. They are already here. They're just in a different dimensional frequency. Just a different dimensional frequency. So you're not getting them coming in, because I think this is one of the things that always gets people a little stuck is, well, why would 4 spirits step forward when they know that the sitter only wants to hear from grandma, and yet I've got great aunt and I've got uncle and I've got neighbour? Why have they come in? They haven't come in. You've just tuned in. So I know I've used this example before, but the best way to view it is as if you're in an elevator or a lift, depending on where you're from, and you're going up through a really, really tall skyscraper. And each floor is dedicated to different spirits connected to different people. So when you're sitting in front of somebody to do mediumship, your energy, your soul knows that you are trying to make a connection with somebody for that person. So your elevator, your energetic elevator, gets off at the right floor. But then, of course, every spirit that is connected to that person is on that floor. And your job as the medium is to try to find the right one. There's no guarantees. There's only us trying our best. I do think that sometimes spirits control who we're able to get through, in a sense that if they know that it's going to harm the sitter maybe thinks they're ready to hear from somebody and they're not ready to hear from them yet. It's almost like that person, that energy goes into some sort of vacuum where you can't get hold of them. But that happens so rarely. Honestly, so rarely. Ever since I started asking who people want to hear from, I think I can get hold of the person they want to hear from 98% of the time, 99% of the time. So it's only every now and again you will get one and you'll know that they're there, but it's almost like they're giving you the silent treatment energetically. And then you have to kind of discern. I know I've gone off on a rabbit hole here, and I promise to get back to your initial questions, but I also want to say sometimes it feels like spirit are giving you the silent treatment, but that's your energy and you cutting yourself off because you don't believe that you can do it. Your doubt is cutting you off, etc., etc. So there have been times when I thought I was working with one spirit and it's been two. There have been times when it's felt very obvious to me. A good example of when it felt really obvious to me is when I had divorced parents come in. And with the intelligence of spirit, obviously they're not still rowing in the spirit world. It doesn't work like that. But in the intelligence of spirit, they knew to come in, and they came in on different sides. So one came to the right of me where spirit often stands when I'm working in this room where I record. And then one came in on the left, and I went, oh, hello. And I am a Capricorn, as you know, so I'm very structured in my approach to spirit. And so when I'm working here in this room, spirit 9 times out of 10 will come and stand to the right of me, just sort of slightly in front of me to the right. I don't know if that's psychologically because there's a door right there. And so to me, it's like they've walked in through the door, or whether that's just something that started and now it's easier for me, but that is generally the place. So it's easier for me to notice that there are two when someone then comes in what feels like through the back door. Steady. It's just that they've come in that direction, so it feels unusual to me. But often, the only way you know you're working with multiple spirits is when a sitter tells you you are. And this is where it gets a little complicated because there's a lot of cruddy mediumship out there. And from a cruddy medium's perspective, even if they don't know that they're doing it and they've not been taught properly, etc., etc., we've got a real problem with people who have not been taught properly. If you are doing mediumship where you say to the sitter, as was said to me in the reading I've told you all about at the start of this season, it could be anyone from your spirit team or your husband's spirit team coming through. So that's quite a huge amount of people. If you then say, who's the person that died of cancer? And they say, oh, that was my uncle. And then you say, okay, and who's the person who's really short? And they go, oh, that was my nan. And you say, and who's got the connection to the locket? And you say, oh, that's my mum. You're more likely to get yeses. So I can understand why people work like that. And what happens is if you get a sitter who's had a medium like that, they then believe that that's how it works. So in the majority of cases, when people say to me, you've got more than one spirit here, I haven't. I'm only working with one. But because they're expecting it, they won't work as hard to make a sense of the evidence for the person that you've said you've got, because it's easier for them to think, oh, it could be this person or it could be that person, which makes it really hard to work. I mean, you'd think, wouldn't you, that you'd want all the yeses, but actually that causes so much uncertainty in a reading. For me, I'd rather get no's than someone go, well, that applies to that person and that applies to that person and that applies to that person. It makes my energy field feel less directive. So if your sitter says to you, you've got multiple spirits, the easiest thing to do is ask the spirit you're working with. And you say, my goodness, are there two of you there and I didn't realise? And they'll say yes or no. They may not say it. I mean, oh God, language is so limiting. They will give you the feeling, you will have the knowing, however your mediumship works, yes or no. If that fails, because obviously as soon as you ask a question you're seeking, which we will get to in your questions in a moment, then what I try and do is pull them apart. So you can't hurt a spirit. It's way beyond our capabilities. So to me, I know it's not very sexy, but they're like Velcro. So I will pull them apart. And I will say, and if I can't pull them apart, then it's one spirit. You can't pull apart a spirit, but you can separate two spirits. So that's kind of how I do it. So I say, right, well, if there's two of you, I would like one of you to stand on my right and one of you to stand on my left. And what you will feel very quickly is if there's any charge on your left. If you normally get spirit on your right, or however it works for you, I will know very quickly. And this, I mean, I'm talking milliseconds here. I'm not saying that you need to, do this big showboaty thing in front of your client. You just go, okay, she said there's two of you. Spirit, if there is two of you, can one of you go stand the other side of me so I can feel it? And if you don't feel any different, you've only got a connection with one. So 9 times out of 10, the sitter will tell you you've got two people there and you haven't. Spirit are intelligent. They may be giving nods to people in the spirit world that are with them, evidentially. So you may say, this is really weird. I'm talking to your grandma, but I'm sure she's referencing a little boy that drowned. That's just her way of saying we're all together. It doesn't mean you're working with both of them. So the spirit may still reference people that are there. But again, the intelligence of spirit, they're not going to reference somebody that is there until they've proven who they are. You're not going to get a nan coming in presenting as somebody else. And, I've seen some right kerfuffles with mediumship where teachers have said, well, they might be presenting as someone else. What, before they've even proved who they are? They're pretending to be your uncle before they've even proven it's your mum. Seems really weird to me. So again, control of your mediumship will really, really help with that. So the way that I normally know is, unless I know, is I try and move them and separate them. And when you turn on the right and you've got all this power, you've got all this energy coming from the spirit, and you move to your left and there's nothing, there's dead space, that's because there was only one spirit. And you can feel that instantaneously. You'll know straight away. Is there someone there? No, there isn't. And then the best thing to do is to tell your sitter. You need to cut this train of thought off, or they will do it all the way through your reading. So you go, no, I'm very sorry. It only feels like one. Or you don't say sorry, actually. I'm going to correct that. It's only one. I'm only picking up on one. She must be if you can't take that for her, she must be referring to someone in spirit who's with her. But I am only working with your grandmother right now. I'm only working with your father right now. Does that make sense? I hope so. I think for me, the way that I know, if we go to your second question, I'm going to read it out again because I know I've wittered for 12 minutes here. How can you work with only one spirit at a time to ensure you receive information that relates only to that specific spirit? Does it come down to the strength of the initial blend? It comes down to the strength of you and your control of your energy field. So the easiest thing at the beginning, and I do say this to all my students, is to tell spirit you only want to work with one spirit at a time. And what you are doing there, because as I've said, spirit are already here, is you're giving an instruction to your own energy field. And this is the thing, your belief creates your reality in your mediumship. So if you believe that you're only going to work with one spirit because that's what you've asked for and spirit will always do as you ask, they always do, then that's all you'll get. So if you're in that space and someone says you're working with two, you can say, no, I'm not. And generally speaking, I tell all my students to do that. I'm going to be teaching a beginner's course starting on Saturday. I will be telling them to set that intention. It's not that spirit need instruction, it's that our energy fields do. And what that does is that gives you confidence to go, no, I'm only working with one. And what you will find as you develop more is that in a couple of years' time, when you've done a lot of development, maybe sooner, depending on how much work you put in, no rules here, you will find that you do get two, but that's when you're ready for two. And I don't think spirit in their intelligence are going to start coming in and messing with you or making it confusing or difficult unless you allow it to be. And if you're allowing it to be, that's on you. It's almost like I can imagine spirit like up at the edge of the room, trying to get out of your field of connection, going, no, no, just work with her, just work with her. But they can't do anything about it. They're omnipresent. If you pick up on them, that's on you. So imagine your energy field now when you are doing your mediumship. Are you imagining your energy expanding in all directions out of you? Because for me, it doesn't. For me, I'm like a Care Bear. It comes out in one beam. My blend is built from one beam. So because I have this place where spirits stand, and it doesn't work like that for me when I'm doing platform, but when I'm doing one-on-one readings, I have the space. My energy kind of funnels into this one beam, this one connection space, because I know that's where they're going to stand, and they are always there. If I'm on stage, I'm just thinking how it feels when I'm on stage. I think it's still to my right. Sorry, my guides are singing clowns to the left of me, jokers on the right. They're finding this analogy really hilarious, but that's how it is for me. But I have a bigger awareness because I think when you're doing platform, there is some sort of dimensional space, energy space that is created where it kind of clears everybody else out, apart from the spirits that are coming in to work with you. But it doesn't appear to happen like that for me in one-on-ones. If it happens like that for you on one-on-ones, great. And maybe that's something we should be asking for. But I can only talk about my experiences right now. So it comes, I've never needed it to clear out. That's the point. I sort of asked Spirit, well, why don't you do that? And they've said, you've never needed it to. You've never needed it to because Spirit always stand on the right. So you know where they are, your energy. So I kind of clear out by default, if that makes sense, because they have a particular space that they stand in inverted commas. I send my energy to that particular space. We are blending from that space and then we become one from that space. So it's not to do with the strength of the initial blend. It's to do with the strength of my energy, my aura, my intention. Also, I am a bit of a hard-nosed person when it comes to, I don't want to flibby gibbet. I won't let myself do that. I won't let myself open up with a when I can open up with a directional beam. I won't go, who else is in this space? And connect to every spirit that's ever walked the land in this area, because that's just stupid to me. And I'm not saying you're stupid, dear listener, who's written it anonymously, but that's kind of the way my brain works. And because my brain works like that, it's kind of a gift because I don't mess around. I'm having to really think about how to answer your questions because it's so innately in me. It wasn't something that was taught to me. It was something that was just in me of, I'm not going to get irrelevant spirits that have no connection to the sitter. I'm not going to open up and do multiple links that could be meaningless, because if you've got everybody's soul family there and you say who's the person that died of cancer, that's pretty much applies to every single person on the planet. Everybody's got someone that dies of cancer. So I want more specificity in my mediumship. And so I think that sets the tone in my energy, and that sets the tone in my mediumship experience. So don't be afraid to be directive, be demanding, command, say what you want, be in your power. And I think that will really help you. We feel a bit rude doing it at the beginning. And again, it's really important to remember you're not giving spirit direction, you're giving your own energy direction. It's a really important differentiation. Now, you can say it like you're speaking to spirit, as long as you never get in the mindset that you're needing to patronizingly give them instruction. Spirit do not need instruction. They are not stupid. So I will say, spirit, I only want to work with one spirit. But I know that I'm not really telling spirit I only want to work with one spirit, because they know that's the easiest way. Why would they make it confusing? But I'm telling my energy that. And then how do you move on to the next spirit that comes through? That one steps back, the next one comes in, same spot, same space. It's, for me, when I'm demonstrating, it's honestly like they're queued up at a bus stop and I go next. And I normally always have a drink because I just reset my energy, disconnect, take a moment. So if you're doing a one-on-one, A drink is your best friend because it gives you something physical to do that gives you a moment to just reset. So you have a swig of your drink, try and do it away from the mic. I'm not always great at that. And then you go, okay, reset, next spirit. And by the default of going next spirit, that's what you'll get. So it really is incredibly simple. I hope that helps. Now, as I was waiting for Spirit to come through with one sitter, I didn't seem to get much information. But when I was prompted to ask the Spirit specific questions, I could get information. Was I just working psychically in this instance? I'd love specific examples of how to determine psychic frequency from evidential frequency. There's no reason on God's green earth that a spirit would step forward and then not give you information. So again, this is you needing to tell your energy what to do. And sometimes it does feel like they're giving you the silent treatment. And sometimes that can be evidential. So this is the annoying thing. Sometimes when you reach out to a spirit and it feels like they're not talking to you, it can be because you need to say, was this person really quiet? And sometimes when you open up to a spirit and it feels like they're not talking to you, you have to go, come on, Hannah, this is you getting in the way, clogging up your own energy field with your doubt, your negative self-talk, and you've ruined this connection. Push through it. And I think I've probably said on this podcast, but maybe not. I know I say it to my students a lot. In my head, I always have Vinnie Jones in the X-Men being Juggernaut. It's not the most attractive image, I'll give you that, but it works for me. And I always imagine my resistance, my self-doubt, like a brick wall that is cutting me off from the spirit. I've worked with spirit long enough to know that they are always there. So the problem is me. And so I imagine myself like Juggernaut wearing his little helmet and I run through it. And it's a stupid visualization, but it works. So find something that works for you and just go, right, that's my resistance. I'm going to push through it. And in honesty, the way that I do that is I will say, it feels like they're not very communicative. Did they not talk a lot? And if they say, oh, no, they were really chatty, then I'm perfectly happy to say to a sitter, that's my resistance then. Give me a minute. I'm going to push through it. And I do that because I think it's really important in our mediumship that we acknowledge the process for us. And we don't go, we don't try and cover it up or make us. There's a lot of kind of well-intentioned fakery in mediumship where we go, oh, I don't know why they're standing so far away. They're not. They're omnipresent. That's you. So never get into that trap. I beg you, even though it would be much more comfortable. And I would love to be the kind of person that could blame spirit because it's so much easier, but you can't. You have to blame yourself. And sometimes you just won't get through that wall, and that's okay. I had times where I can't get through it. You have to just allow that. Now, what happened was when you asked the spirit questions, it opened up your energy field to be able to perceive the answer. And this is a fine balance. So I believe that every spirit link starts off psychically and moves into evidential mediumship. So you start off by psychometrizing a soul. And the way that we know this is if you imagine the blend, the connection, the information from spirit having a directional arrow. If you're asking a question, then your arrow is coming out of you, and that is seeking. Seeking is psychic. If the information is coming in with ease and you're not really looking for it, it's just there, and the next piece is already waiting, then that arrow is pointing into you, and that is mediumship. But you have to go through psychic to get to mediumship. When people talk about surrender in mediumship, I think that is a process that you have to get into. It's not an immediacy. And so, of course, when you go, is there a spirit there? You're seeking. We all are. When I go, who's coming in to work with me tonight? And my energy reaches out into the void, I'm reaching. And what you want to do is kind of grab that spirit by the hand and they will pull in closer to you. You don't have to yank him. It will be lovely and natural, but that's where you want it to be. So That said, I personally recommend at the beginning of every mediumship link that you do that you have a list of questions. Don't freak out, everybody. Stay with me here. That you would like spirit to try to answer to start you off. And you need to find your own list, listener. This is really important. So start off by thinking about what you would want to hear from your loved ones if they were coming in. So things like relationship, how they died, personality, things like that. Now, your list, you need to write it down. And I would suggest trying to get between 10 and 12 things on that list. But you know that you don't go down that list in order and you don't get everything off that list. But what that does is that gives you a kind of comfortable platform so that when you're opening up to spirit in those initial stages, you know you're going to get one of 10 things. And you know roughly what one of those 10 things will be. You know what all the 10 things potentially could be. So you don't have to go through the process of opening up to someone's whole life and everything. So, and what you will find if you work with those 10 is that there are specific ones that you get more easily, that you're stronger at, and they are the ones that then will become your natural go to. So, for me, my natural go tos, generally speaking, not every time, are personality, relationship, age, and how they died. And those are the things that I normally get quite early on in a reading because when I'm building that blend with the spirit. And personality for me is always the easiest one to perceive because you feel it and you just know this person is the way that they were. So those are the kind of things that I really recommend, some sort of structure at the beginning. So when you're opening up into the void isn't humongous. It's a void with 10 options and you know you're going to get one of them. But what you have to do is just allow a flow and a surrender in that. So you know what you've asked for. You've got some rough comfort in knowing roughly what something's going to be, but you just allow spirit and their intelligence to bring through whatever they can because they know what you're able to perceive. It's, everything about that spirit is already with you. And that should move you from psychic into mediumship into maybe 3 bits of evidence if you do it quick enough. And people that have learnt with me will know that I really, really recommend going as fast as you can at the beginning. Not so fast that your sitter can't understand you because you've given out so much information at the speed of light and it's really hard to understand, but a good steady pace with no pauses, because that just flips the switch from psychic to mediumship much more quickly. If you start, you spend more time in psychic. So there's nothing wrong with being in psychic. And in fact, psychic is to be expected, but it's just bad if you stay in it and then you say you're working evidentially. And that's the rub. So you reach out, you say, who's with me? That's psychic. And then as soon as you start talking, you will slip into evidential. You don't need to do anything or control it or make it happen. It will just happen naturally. And then as you go through the reading, there may be moments where you slip back into psychic. So if your brain has a heckle and says you're rubbish, everybody hates you, this sitter thinks you're crap, as mine often does, then I'll go, ooh, and that will move me back into psychic. So I'll have to, I'll go, oh God. And then I'll go into psychic and then I'll move back into mediumship again. Psychic is not a dirty word, but it's just about understanding the difference and how we utilize it. So for me, the way that I know if I'm in psychic is if I'm looking or if I'm receiving. Now, when you've got a really good blend with the spirit, the last thing that I want to say to you is you might sometimes want to ask questions. Now, I think the best blend with spirit is conversational and engaging. So you're not just there going, well, what have you got? This is what they've got. You're building a relationship, an energetic relationship with somebody. And so when, if they show you something, you're allowed to go, well, why are you showing me that? But you've kind of got to maintain your mediumship frequency in that space. So you kind of go, why are you showing me that? And if they can show you, they'll show you because you're opening up your energy to it. But if they can't, you don't stick with it. You let them bring in whatever they want. So psychic has a slight control element to it, where evidential mediumship doesn't. But that doesn't mean you have to completely disengage. You will naturally disengage once you get really good into your blend. And so, you can, I know I've used this before. Think of it like the gears of a car. Psychic is first and second gear. Then you move into evidential. That's third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. We don't get into sixth gear every time. But when we do, that is when, before you even thought of the question, the answer from the spirit is with you. It's already there. You're so simpatico and so blended. There's no separation between you and the spirit, and everything is just coming out of you. God, I wish that happened every time. So I hope that this helps. I know there's been a lot of information. If it hasn't helped or you have more questions, please do submit them. If anyone listening to this is like, but hang on a minute, it's a really big thing to try and explain concisely, which is not my forte, and in this kind of environment where you can't interject, so I can't check that it's landing. So please let me know. But multiple spirits, just to highlight this again, if your sitter says you're working with multiple spirits, try and separate them. If you can't separate them, then you're only working with one. Keep control of your blend. So for me, it comes out the front of me into the side of me. My energy moves like that. I'm not aware of all of the spirits that are in this omnipresent space all the time. I'm only aware, my focus is on the one that I'm working with. And then they kind of step back and the next one comes in. And that is just how it feels to me. They go, the next one comes in. And really, for psychic versus mediumship, it is just the flow of your energy. Are you looking or are you receiving? Are you seeking or receiving? And that is how you know which one you're in. I hope that these helped. Let me know, and thank you so much for submitting your question. Have a great day, everyone, and I will be back soon.